Welcome, everybody. I was just saying we've got over 50 of us so far today and 100 registered. So we've got a really great group that we're quite excited about. We are thrilled to be hosting our second annual Candora Connect celebrating International Women's Day. This time last year was actually our last in-person event when we got to see everyone in person. And I was saying before we started, it was a bit of a weird environment where we weren't yet we weren't shaking hands, and we're trying not to hug and kind of figure out this new landscape. And here we are a year later. For those of you that don't know, Candora and Candora Connect are media and event platforms created by Marigold PR with the goal of building a profile for women in emerging industries. We are also the team behind the Women, Wellness, and Cannabis Global Conference. The second annual conference is taking place this year on May 26th and 27th. Over the past few years, Candora and WWC have provided speaking and thought leadership opportunities for over 100 women with more than 2,000 global attendees who have told us they really value the networking leading to business and career opportunities. So we're pretty proud of that. A special thank you to Susan Chappelle, who you'll hear from later today, but her contribution to today's event helped us really put together something wonderful, so we're very grateful. Marigold PR itself, if you didn't know, is a female-founded business. Bridget and I launched Marigold in 2016, and our team is made up of about 80% women with a few great gentlemen on board. A special shout out to Danielle and Tracy for their work on Candora. They really pulled together today's events and the rest of the events you see throughout the year. And we're so grateful, Bridget and I, for the work that they do because we love connecting with you all. We have 9 innovative speakers today. Our speakers will be introducing themselves during 2 panels. There will be time for questions during the Q&A, and the agenda today is as follows. First up, we have a panel focused on women in plant medicine. Next, we will hear from Susan Chappelle. Following that, we'll have a panel all about bringing products to market in Canada. And after the panels, we'll break out into rotating groups where everyone gets a chance to engage and build profile for their business and talk about their collaboration needs. We'd like to thank the media partners who have supported this event, and they include Cannabis Newswire, Psychedelic Newswire, CFN Media Group, Cannabis Prospect Magazine, Cannabis Retailer, PAC, People Alliance of Cannabis in Canada, and the CPA, the Canadian Psychedelic Association. So thank you very much to all of our partners. Next up, we have a quick video about our work at Marigold PR, and then Danielle will take us into our first panel. So thank you so much.
All right, so now I'm going to welcome up our first panel, that is Women in Plant Medicine. What does science say?
Hello, I'm going to be moderating today. I'm very excited. I can't think of a better way to spend International Women's Day than talking about cannabis, psychedelics, and science. And I'm just checking my mic is on, okay. I just want to start with introductions. We have an amazing panel. Let me just think where we're going to start. If we want to start with maybe Terry, if you give an introduction about yourselves and what you do in the cannabis and psychedelic space.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me to the second of your event. I am Terry Pauline Smith. I am the one that is in the warmth today. I'm in Jamaica, and I am with Wake Jamaica Limited, which is a partner company to Wake Network. We're not in cannabis, but you know, it's Jamaica. So everybody in Jamaica just naturally is in cannabis. Our commitment is to all things mushrooms. We are gourmet edibles, medicinal, functional, and psilocybin mushroom. I look forward to this conversation.
Excellent, thank you. Susan? I'm just going by the order that you appear on my screen.
Yeah, lovely. Perfect, Sabrina. Thank you so much for moderating today, and thank you for Marigold for having us all on International Women's Day, which I really celebrate a lot more than any other days, because entry into plant medicine and science are still restricted for women. So I'm so excited to be here today. I am a scientist. I've published in mostly the mechanisms of peripheral pain in the nervous system. I love operating at the intersect of technology, science, and operations. So combining all of these things into industry and making things operational. I have a degree in economic development. I'm an MBA, but my passion still lies in science and plant medicine. Plant medicine has helped me get better in so many ways. I have a chronic inflammatory illness that has led me into so much questioning about health and mechanisms of how these amazing compounds work. And I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. Ashley?
Hi, everybody, and happy International Women's Day. Thank you, Maribel, for having me today. My name is Ashley Athel. I'm CEO of Harvester Cannabis. We are essentially a craft cultivator of cannabis products in Canada. And I am so excited to be here amongst these panelists, as I might not be directly in the psychedelic space, but I have a profound respect for the space and where it's going. And I'm so happy to be on this panel. And so thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Ashley. Olga?
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Women's Day. Many thanks to Marigold for hosting this. Wonderful to be a part of this panel. Hope that together we will help our primarily female audience today to navigate the quickly upcoming field of psychedelics and psychedelic medicine. And I'll be happy to be a part of that. I'm Olga Chernolas. I am Wake Network's Chief Scientific Officer. I'm a neuroscientist working in psychedelic research now.
Great, thanks, Olga. I'll do a quick intro. I forgot to do it the last time we had this. I'm Sabrina Ramkalawan. My background is a registered nurse, critical care, mental health, and community nursing. Been doing clinical trials for 20 years, both on the academic side. I worked for pharma companies. I know that's a bad word. Sorry. I also worked in large global contract research organizations as well, and been able to kind of know all the aspects of bringing drugs to market, devices to market. So I got really excited about plant-based medicine. So I have shifted away from pharma. And I really wanted to dedicate, I've been dedicating the last 6 years towards plant-based medicine research. Worked on 12 clinical research trials to date on cannabinoids. And in early 2020, I started a female-led company called Node Group Inc. It is a global CRO and consultancy focused on helping organizations, whether it's cannabis research or psychedelics, just helping in any way to get clinical trials going in those areas. So that's a little bit about me. So we're gonna get right into the talk of science, what we're all here for. So the first question I have is, how do psychedelics work on the brain? So this is not geared to any specific person. Just jump in and answer. So how do psychedelics work on the brain?
Well, and they're different psychedelics, and they work on the brain in quite a different way. But if we are talking about, say, psilocybin, which can be derived from our lovely mushrooms, it's believed to be working by resetting some of the neuronal connections in our brain, allowing people to reprocess and repackage some of the emotional material in a healthier way. And we have to remember that modern day psychedelic research is recognizing psychedelics as a part of psychedelic assisted therapy. So when we are looking at a full dose treatment scenarios, they are always a part of the psychedelic, of the psychotherapy geared towards the specific illness or ailment that we are looking to treat with this therapy.
Any other comments?
I love that answer. It's excellent. And I just have to point out that there's still so much we have to learn, that psychedelics have been in restricted research modality for so long, since basically the 1970s. And we're basically, the renaissance that's happening now is a scientific renaissance, where we're learning more about the mechanism, the receptors, as well as the other compounds and modalities that are in these mushrooms. There's many research projects going on right now, all under Section 56, which is really restrictive. It gives you a year basically to get your project done. And that the discovery of interconnectivity in the brain and neurogenesis, and depending on the compound, there's just so many different mechanisms depending on the psychedelic compound you're using. So I really love Olga's take on the fact that different psychedelics act on different receptors, and we are still learning about the receptors that they work on, even though we know so much about the outcome of good facilitated psychedelic medicine.
I mean, this could be a whole session just alone talking about psychedelics. So I think that's a good overarching response. We know that historically, and we're talking about women and science, and what does science say? So historically, women haven't been as well represented in drug trials. We know that there's a lot of medications that came to market. Some of them have been taken away from market because they haven't really shown the effects of women. And we know women are completely different. We have this thing called reproductive system. We have hormones. Our body mass is different. There's so many differences that it can't be expected that drugs are going to work the same way. So can we talk a little bit about what are the sex differences in terms of the psychedelic response? What do we know? Do we even know?
And I think that we do not actually really know, because of how, as Susan has mentioned, how restrictive the research is to this day and has been in prior decades has been. So to get your hands on these substances, to put it into clinical trial research, is very complicated still to this day. So for researchers to go down to the nitty-gritty of looking at how genders respond differently to these compounds, we're just not there yet, but it's definitely a very needed research, because as you said, Sabrina, we're quite different, not all that different, but we are quite different, and we need to encounter for potential differences in how our genetic makeup and corresponding hormonal changes may interfere and interact with the with anything that we put into our bodies.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully, I mean, obviously, hopefully moving forward, when we do clinical trials, we are going to look at obviously female representation and also separating that data. So I'll ask the question about, what research projects are you currently engaged in? If you could talk about some of the research that's going on now that maybe you're part of.
This is so exciting. We are, Wake Network, we are undertaking to close a gap in knowledge around the area of microdosing. So this is something that, the world has been a buzz of in the past couple of years, but you'd be surprised to know that there have been no controlled clinical trials for microdosing with psilocybin. So we are looking to address it in a very direct manner. So not only are we going to run a controlled trials for microdosing psilocybin, we're looking to run these trials utilizing botanically derived, mushroom derived, it's not a botanical, mushroom derived psilocybin compared to the synthetic psilocybin that was used in all the prior clinical trials run to date. So not only are we going to know whether it actually works, but we're going to test it using the same compound that people are dosing with themselves day to day. So I'm very excited to tell you that there are a couple of trials in the works in Jamaica, in Canada, and we are working with the top-notch researchers, and I'm very excited about the outcomes that we will uncover with these trials. And when I'm back in maybe 6 months' time, let's be optimistic. I'll be able to give you much more details, and I'm sure you'll dial into to know about the results from those trials.
That's excellent, because I think that's the biggest question that you get asked is, how do you dose? You know, how do you microdose? So I think, and that there, you're like you said, there's no data, there's no controlled trials showing what that looks like. So I think that's amazing that you're doing that. Any other projects people are working on?
I'm still working on a cytokine study with Haven, and as well, we're looking at inflammatory mediators in, and again, Olga, thank you for mentioning the difference between the fact that most of the work that's been done on mushrooms is in synthetics and synthetically derived psilocybin. So looking at natural compounds, I do, my hypothesis, as it were, is that the natural mushrooms do contain possible enzymes or other preventatives that may stop inflammatory process. We've been using synthetics to look at cytokine or inflammatory response with mushrooms. And I'm incredibly interested in either a central peripheral nervous system or even looking at heart valves, because one of the biggest things in our industry is that 5-HT receptors, our heart valves contain the same receptors. So we still don't know if the serum that's created when we take anything that affects our serotonin system is pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. So I like to look at the world as a series of pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory events. And I'd love to discover whether natural mushrooms actually reduce inflammation like all the other mushrooms do, or whether using synthetics actually increases inflammation. So that comparison between the two. I'm also interested, we're also running a study with my new company on neurogenesis and looking at neurogenesis in the central nervous system and how that can possibly help Alzheimer's patients or ALS patients. So there's so much discovery to be done, and it's a really exciting space right now.
Love that you talk about Alzheimer's too, because that's a whole other area as well.
Yeah, all the neurodegenerative diseases, yeah. We talk about neurogenesis and mushrooms and the ability for mushrooms to expand our consciousness and expand our receptors in our brain. And that is lack of neurogenesis is one of the key indicators in these degenerative brain functions. So it is, you know, the next 10 years are going to be so exciting in how these functional mushrooms, not just psilocybin mushrooms, but functional mushrooms, as Terry said, all the other nutraceutical mushrooms can help human health to expand. And may I add another thing on the women's studies, is the NIH now makes it impossible. You cannot put forward a grant without including gender diversity. So you can, in the old days, you could just pick all men in your study, and now that's an impossible task, because in order to be approved for a clinical study, you have to have equal gender representation. I love that.
Okay. I know we're more focused on talking about women right now too, but there's obviously too a lack of diversity in psychedelic clinical trials. So that's obviously a big area as well as women being included in research. Going to talk a little bit about the gender side. So there's anecdotal evidence that psilocybin and psychedelics can help with gender fluidity. And I don't know if you've read this blog, but there's a blog by Ivy. It's called Unlocking the Closet Door Through Psychedelics. And if you haven't read it, it's an excellent blog to read. So what are your thoughts on psilocybin or psychedelics as they might be helpful for transgender and non-binary people?
While I don't have any academic qualification to talk about it, I can talk from the position of always, most of the time, being a minority woman living in majority cultures. And what psychedelics, especially mushroom, has done for me is to remove give me enough space, emotional and intellectual space, that I really don't care what you think. So I would expect it to to transcend whether I'm dealing with issues around my sexuality or my skin color or my age. Psychedelic is really important for me. There, when I can even remember 10 years ago, if you told me that about a 60-year-old woman, I would think that's a really old woman that is beyond any use in society. I'm now 63. And so psychedelics for me has been one way of accepting where I am in the universe, where I am in the growth of myself, and to give me that self-confidence to say, well, I am now comfortable in my skin. I am grateful to be here. And whether it's that I would like to kiss a girl or pretend to be a boy, I have that confidence in myself that I don't really need your permission to be who I am. And that is a gift of the psychedelics.
That's amazing. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think that's a really huge point that Terry brought up, is the fact that it frees you from other people's judgments and a reflection on yourself. A lot of the time, psychedelics, from my experience, has allowed for that background to be pushed forward, so that you have the ability to see what you've essentially suppressed unconsciously. And for those individuals who are transgender, for those individuals who maybe have a different sexual appetite, that might be something beneficial for them as they move through their own journey. So yeah, I absolutely agree with what Terry said.
I'm going to talk a little bit on the cannabis side now, just that we were talking about barriers and stuff. What barriers to entry are there for women when it comes to plant-based medicine? I'm sure we all have some sort of story.
Yeah. I think the general understanding of it is the fact of education. With us in Canada, it's maybe the education of the regulations that is put in front of us, and as well funding. I think everybody across the board, doesn't matter who you are, will always have a challenge with funding. So if we're going to talk about the education piece first, let's talk about the landscape of cannabis. It's huge. Mm-hmm. And so looking at cannabis and the landscape of cannabis and really trying to figure out what your niche is can be extremely overwhelming. So I know that a lot of the ladies on this panel and the other panels have been in the cannabis space for a very long time. And it's taken us years, to be honest, to really get our feet into the ground of cannabis. So I think that anybody who is looking to get into the cannabis space, and I'm hoping the psychedelic space as well, that one can actually take the time to really find out what works with them, what talks to them, and so that they can really thrive within the space. And that will essentially communicate into the funding aspect. If individuals, and we tend to find that more men are more so the funders or the investors outright across the board, if more men are becoming a little bit more aware of the value that women bring to the table on a leadership level, and as well the knowledge that we're bringing to the table, not even just as the product, but ensuring that they understand the healing, the plant healing properties of what we're providing, is very, very important. So I think that education and funding are two of the main barriers.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Anybody else in terms of barriers getting into this industry?
Sabrina, I think it mirrors a lot of barriers to women entering any industry.
Yes.
And it's just, just over gender bias. And as Ashley was saying, that pertains to access to capital, to development of the business, but specifically talking about plant medicines, and being even more specific, talking about cannabis and psychedelics. Cannabis has recently been legalized and descheduled in Canada, but psychedelics have not, and cannabis has been criminalized for decades. So aside from everything else, we also have this aspect of illegality that can be a bigger deterrent for females considering family caring roles and just generally women being more alert to the criminalization aspect of working with these substances.
When it comes to mushroom, I think for me, language has always been an entryway or a barrier. And the language of the psychedelic understanding in the case of mushrooms, when we talk about as a cultivator, demystifying the language of cultivating mushrooms, because you're talking about myceliums and incubation and colonization and people's eyes gloss over. So a big part of my work has been to demystify the language around mushrooms, because it has been a barrier in Jamaica to the ordinary woman on the, the ordinary farmer, the woman that may have all kinds of skills that could bring to the table, but they are intimidated by the language of what we're talking about. And the more comfortable you are with the language of an industry, is the more likely you are to participate. Then there is the issue of never being taken seriously. Now, since the men are interested in mushrooms in Jamaica, it's a rage. Everybody wants to talk about mushroom. The government has time to talk about mushroom because men are coming to the table and talking about the value of it. I've been at this game for 10 years, trying to explain why mushroom offers a potential, why it was really good for women to participate in cultivating mushrooms, because it improved the food and income security of a small farmer. All of that is now really cool to talk about. But for a very long time, it was really brushed off. Mostly, I can't say because I was a Black woman, because I started the conversation in a country where most of us are Black. So this was one case where it didn't have anything to do with my skin color. It had to do with the fact that I was a girl. And as a woman, it wasn't taken serious. Oh, it's the women playing around with a little bit of mushrooms. All of a sudden, we have nice big guys showing up at the table because there's a financial benefit to it. So everybody wants to talk about it. And so I concur that it is the traditional barriers that women face in entering into any business. But in the psychedelics, it's really paradoxical that we are so much a part of it, especially in Jamaica. Plant medicine is what we live by. Mm-hmm. You know, we may not have words like psychedelics, but every grandmother, every mother knows to pull some, lemongrass and what it's good for, and what kind of bush to feed the babies, and what to do after you've had a baby and you have the blues, which medicine you should boil. And so plant medicine for, cultures like mine are just the way we do things, because a lot of time you don't have the money or the access to go and buy westernized medicine. So we live in plant medicine. However, it's just kind of like that's women's stuff over there. Now that the men are interested and we are on stock markets and all of that kind of stuff, it's really cool to talk about, plant medicine.
I was watching a video where you did an interview and you were saying how men were just showing up at your door, one after the other.
Late nights too, they just kind of show up.
I would love to add to that. And Terry, I would love to know what is in it for Jamaica. We lost, when we legalized cannabis, our community economic development and women's businesses and women's connection to plant medicine went sideways. So we had immense amounts of community economic development, and we had a full vertical economy in plant medicine with cannabis, and also now with mushrooms, with women's businesses, women doing extraction, women building salves, and I ran a cancer clinic for 25 years, and all of the medicine that the patients were taking was gray market, women developed products that brought an immense amount of economic development into our communities. And now that we've Molson Canadianed it, I'm glad it's coming back to some smaller growers, but I look at the economic modeling of all of this, of all of the legislation and the requirements, and it's not sustainable with taxation and all the other costs that are involved in legalization. And I am deeply concerned for the mushroom market as well. Is right now we're in that lovely soft spot of Section 56s and controlled substances, with all the plant medicine still and fungus medicine getting to the consumer through the gray market. And there's lots of women-led businesses that are doing that, and we're going to lose those when it goes to market. So I'm hoping that we can roll this out completely different in the mushroom world, and that, Terry, that you protect your growers against 30 white men companies rolling into Jamaica and growing mushrooms by paying off your ministers. That concerns me like you have no idea. When we should be using women-led co-ops and the knowledge and the integration of the countries that we roll into, and being very cognizant of how we're affecting the communities that we're in as market players.
Susan, what you've said is incredibly powerful. The women of the Jamaica, rural, poor women and youth have become artisan cultivators. They have nursed things. They have learned how to walk in the wild and identify mushrooms and bring it back to the table. But in a lot of ways, that's not really important to the market. However, because mushroom is such a special medicine, it carries within it the ability to discard those who are not true to it. Because mushrooms are like children. You don't get to have Sundays and Saturdays off and then come back to play with it. It takes a diligence, and your mushroom talks to you, and you can't just hire somebody to run your grow up. So the mushroom itself has risen to the place of goddess and is defining things. A lot of people have been building companies based on Excel sheets. And I sit back with confidence and smile, because I know that ain't how mushrooms play. Mushroom is just like, well, you think that, huh? In one slip, you can contaminate your whole production. It takes love, it takes caring, and it takes what women are prepared to do. We hang in there when we don't know what we're going to get out of it. So that has been comforting for me, in that my girls continue to be artisan and to be committed to what they're doing.
Amen.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know how to follow that. That's awesome. You know, I think it's been, you know, I think a lot of us have the sentiment that it's been disappointing, that we'd want to see more women, because, you know, we are the caretakers, we take care of our families, and, you know, we have a passion for medicine and the passion for healing people and helping people. And I think that it's so unfortunate when, you know, the big news is about the stock markets, and, you know, that's like the big news that comes out of the LP side. And also we're seeing that in the psychedelics. So that's obviously something that it's so important that women are at the forefront of these companies, because we have that passion. And speaking of that, you know, let's talk about how, because a lot of us are in this because we've seen it help us, we've seen it help our families. So how we can talk about both cannabis and psychedelics, how do you feel that specifically can help and empower women?
I'm gonna take this question, but it's gonna be probably a little personal.
Sure.
So I might, I'm just forewarning, guys, it does get a little bit personal, but cannabis, because I can speak to that, can help women in so many different ways. And for me, it was through gynecological health. About 2.5 years ago, I actually found out that I had a fibroid. So fibroids are essentially uterine tumors that are located in your uterus. And I was a bit of a, my situation was a bit difficult because my fibroid was about 10 pounds. It was literally the size of a child, a big child.
A big one.
A big child, right. And I was overwhelmed, like, I didn't know what to do. So of course, I went to my doctor, went to my gynecologist. They put me on Lupron, which essentially puts me into menopause. And it was horrible. Now, at this time, I was building my facility. I was putting up drywall, doing all the things that girls don't do, drilling in screws, doing all the things. And I was drained. My iron levels were so low. And after about 6 months of Lupron injections, which I willingly accepted, my fibroid grew 2 pounds. And so it didn't work for me. And I essentially decided to go to my gynecologist, which were quite senior in their respective positions. And I said, you know what, guys, not gonna happen with me anymore. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on something that I know that will work. And so I decided to tell them about Rick Simpson oil. And I said to them, I'm gonna be utilizing this Rick Simpson oil. I grew my medicine out in my backyard. And I processed the whole thing by myself. And I said, give me 6 months. I'll be able to get to a 10-pound space before, so that you guys will be able to extract it from my body and go into surgery. They didn't believe me. They're like, they were looking for other options. My gynecologists were like, I'm against this. I don't want anything to do with this. But at the end of the day, I said, guess what? It's my body. So I'm going to do what I do. And they said, okay, Ashley, every 2 months, we're going to actually get back together and we are going to essentially assess what's going on. You're going to have ultrasounds, all of that. By month 3, I was down 0.7 pounds. By month 6, I was down 2.1 pounds. And so utilizing the Rick Simpson oil, which was extremely concentrated. Now, Rick Simpson oil is something that individuals use when they're trying to get off of heroin. Let's say when individuals use when they are cancer patients. And I was able to successfully get down to 10 pounds. And I was able to actually have my surgery. They were blown away. They were amazed. And right now, I actually am working with these ladies to see if we can build something, another arm of my company when it comes to women's gynecological health. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not want any of you guys to go through any of this. But even though that was a very extreme traumatic situation, what came out of it was them learning about cannabis, but as well, us looking at a way that we can build business and work together through innovation. And I know it's a bit personal, but it's super impactful to my story and what has happened to me and why I firmly believe that cannabis can really unite individuals, businesses, and ideas.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ashley.
Yeah, no worries.
But I mean, that speaks to, you know, our passion and the fact that we're doing something that we believe in, you know. Absolutely. Anybody else want to share anything about kind of how cannabis or psychedelics can help women specifically?
I tend to talk more about mushrooms, and yes, and psychedelic mushrooms are important, an important part of my toolkit. But the cultivation of this medicine, the food, is an amazing vehicle for transforming societies. I came to mushroom from watching a documentary on a young lady named from Africa who at 11 years old learned to cultivate mushrooms. And at 11 years old, learning to cultivate oyster mushroom freed her from having to marry a 37-year-old man. It also gave her the economic power to take over responsibility for her grandmother and her younger siblings, because Chita Cavera's mother and father had died from AIDS. And she went around the world teaching other 11-year-olds and other orphans how to free themselves. So the economic power, income security in a world where so few of us own so much and so many need so much. um, learning to create your food and your medicine helps you to have better income security. It improves your access to medicine. It improves so much. And in some of the women that I'm working with, it frees you from a domestic violence situation where you continue to interact with men who don't like you or don't like women very much, that are abusive, but you keep going back because it means baby father number three is giving you enough to help feed baby number one and baby number two, because those baby fathers are gone. So in very real ways, the learning to cultivate helps you better to improve your income and food security. And while Ashley, and I really love your story, I could see that, you know, we got to spend some time together, you, me.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is how we can change societies on a larger scale. One of the exciting thing about me working with Wake is that Wake made a commitment that we could look at improving every community that we went in, that we were committed to the triple bottom line, that it wasn't just about the financial benefits of people participating in this industry. It was about the social and it was about the environment. So those are three ways that women, when the air is cleaner, when the water is cleaner, when our waste from the mushroom makes new topsoil, the women benefit. When they get to have a market in North America and people buy the Wake product because it was grown by the women that grow it and it was grown in such a way, then women benefit. And when women and girls benefit, then the world benefits. Because of my involvement in Wake, more girls are looking at chemistry, they're looking at science. When, as Ashley may know, from her connections with Jamaica, is that science is not something that a lot of girls will have access to in rural communities. So the plant medicine being more popular and having people like Olga looking at what the science is behind it translates it into a language where me talking to my people can explain in simple words why it's scientifically great to partake in plant medicine. So regardless, no, it's not a panacea and it won't save everyone. But for some of us who have to deal with childhood sexual trauma or adult trauma or any of that, for us, like the Rick Simpson oil for Ashley, is a way out. It's a way through our struggle. So there, I could spend 2 hours and give you stories, an example of how psychedelic is a real help. Maybe not for everybody, but for so many of us, it was the door opener. That first big trip, that opportunity to grow mushrooms, that whatever angle we came at it from, it was a door opener. And sometimes as women, what we need so badly is just for another door, just for another window to open so we can see that other side.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was powerful. I love the stories. I think I saw a message that we're opening it up for questions that anyone has for the panelists. I think people really like these stories. Getting goosebumps, this is so inspiring. Anybody have any questions? Incredible, Terry. There is a women's collective in Guatemala that does similar community empowerment around mushroom growing, so very beautiful. Any questions? What is the name of the doc Terry was talking about?
Oh, just YouTube or Google Chida Covera. CHIDO GOVERA, Chida Covera. And if you don't cry after 5 minutes and feel empowered after 6, then I don't know what's up with your heart.
This question is for everyone. How do we build businesses that allow flexibility to match women's needs and their communities? My health does not allow me to work 9 to 5. Even just my period keeps me in bed for 2 to 3 hours a month, or 2 to 3 days, a month.
Wow, that's difficult. Coming from a space where I'm definitely relate in being in bed for 2 to 3 days, you know, and dealing with cramps, severe cramps and uncomfort. It's a very difficult balance, and I unfortunately don't have a straight answer for you. I would suggest trying to look at work where you can do work from home and potentially maybe work part-time at a facility, wherever the case is. But I empathize with you, and I understand how difficult it is when you have those challenges. I don't know if anybody else has any other suggestions.
For me, I've always, I don't do very well working for people. I do better working with people. And because I was a high school dropout, in my 20s, I realized that I was smarter than a lot of the jobs that I qualified for. So I turned to entrepreneurship. When you build a company yourself, when you take the risk and invest in yourself, you can usually set more of the rules. When you come to work for me, you need to do what I ask you to do, and you're selling your time. And so I think if you want more freedom and more ability to work on the terms that work for you, then you have to do everything in your power to develop those entrepreneurship skills. Because being an entrepreneur, enterprise, I think, is more powerful than anything else. When you can monetize what you bring to the table, that gives you freedom. I believe that you can create the work circumstances that work best for you, for your interest, for your time, for everything, if you are controlling your work environment. So I would say it's not too big a deal to get over. It's when you go to work for other people that you have a problem. Find somebody you want to build something with. Find other women that have the skills that you didn't. When I wasn't a university graduate yet, I partnered with people who had been to university until I could go to university and get my degrees. So there's somebody that you may have a personality trait that they don't have, and you may be the salesperson like I was. So you bring what you want to the table and find another woman or a group of women and figure a way to work with them. I get to work with Olga. Not in this lifetime do I have enough time to go and learn the science or as much as she knows about shoes. I will just rely on Olga to help me be really, chic with how I pick my shoes and the way I dress. And she can do the science, but I'm pretty awesome cool when it comes to building networks and working with people and figuring out cool things to do with mushrooms, how to cook it, how to eat it, how to talk about it. I've got skills that are different from hers, but together we bring something to Wake, me from Jamaica, her from Eastern Europe, different ages, different things. We make it better because we are on the same team. So go find somebody on a team. You bring what's great about you. Find people that have things that you don't have and build your own company.
I love that you highlighted your working with Olga, because I think that's so important. Women supporting women, women building other women. I think that's so important, especially what day we're talking about today. Obviously, I mean, everyone here on the panel is very entrepreneurial. You took the leap of faith and started a business and followed the passion that you had. There's a question here that talks about how do you sustain yourself in terms of momentum? And I'm sure everyone here has had difficult and challenging times when all doors seems to close. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about kind of how do you keep going and surpass all of those challenges and those closed doors?
I wouldn't mind taking that question, just because I don't know if you want to see that my personal struggles with my health are massive, and also having those, but because of so basically I have an inflammatory disease that's covers all my connective tissue, my lungs, my heart, my stomach. And I was not expected to make it past 19 to 20. And when I was in my 20s, I went into a coma. And when I came out, I was driven to change the healthcare system because of the healthcare system was incredibly amazing for me. It kept me alive, but it wasn't enough. And I became a climber and I went into the outdoors and I found my passion in the mountains. I needed to, when you're entering nascent industries like moving plant medicine into public markets or trying to find a place for your plant medicine so it can reach the people, it is policy changes, it is massive changes and massive time commitment. So I need about 2 hours a day to be quiet, either with myself or with my family, and to go into nature and remind myself why I'm on the planet, why I am so driven to get plant medicine to the people. Dealing with cancer patients for me for so long was also very taxing because you're always taking on other people's stories without talking about your own story. And, I do have definite challenges where are days where I'm just like in so much pain, I can barely manage my fingers. And I also have music. So music is a major part of, I think music and mushrooms are two things that are very interconnected. There's another hypothesis, we still haven't really delved into how mushrooms can help or hinder. We know how it affects the arts, but we haven't really studied musicians. And musicians are all now in tragic depressions because of not being able to play, because our hearts always want to share our music with people. And I'm a classical violinist. So those little interactions is taking time for yourself, taking time to remember that there's always somebody that's feeling worse than you, and that breathing and using plant medicine to give yourself hope. And Terry, you brought that up extremely well, is that, mushrooms for me give me that glimmer of hope. I can go into the woods and feel no pain and don't feel my body in a different way and brighten the colors and just allow me to interact with nature in a way that I feel very, very comfortable in my body, and celebrate the fact that my body does perform for me in different ways through plant medicine. So, and especially on International Women's Day, is understanding that we all have insane challenges that men don't have, and hormones and menopause, the things that we don't talk about openly, and those things, being vulnerable with each other and connecting with each other over those vulnerabilities. And Ashley, thank you for sharing your story as well. But all of those stories are incredibly important.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, not for just answering the questions, but sharing your personal story. Sorry, Terry, did you want to say something?
Yes, mushrooms taught me a lesson that I have to give to mushroom. It taught me that in the moment, if I just focus on this moment, I don't care what's happening, I can get through it. I can't promise you that I can get through the next moment. And in hindsight, I can't even explain how I got through those other moments. But mushroom taught me that if I just hang right here, right now, just here, not over there, not over there, when it gets really bad, and it has gotten really bad a number of times. I just, after 7 years of not being able to walk, the CEO of Weight Network stood beside me and saw me through 5 hours of surgery to get a new hip. And it's the first time in 7 years that I'm not in level 10 pain. But whether it's emotional or it's physical, mushroom has taught me that I can handle anything. I can handle everything, one moment at a time, just here, not there, not there. I can do this. I can do this moment. I don't know what's coming down the pipe, but I'm not going to worry about it. And I learned that from mushrooms. And I think if working with Wake, working with people like Olga, working to be part of what you're presenting, if we can tell other women that it don't matter what's coming down the pipe, we can deal with it, a bite at a time, just one bite. I may need your help later, but for right now, we can handle everything if we just stay right here in this moment. And that is a gift that mushrooms gave me. And I think I want to give to other people. You can get through it. So they said no, whatever. They just don't have enough information to say yes yet. So they say they're going to take the house, whatever. We'll go couch surfing. And I won't worry about that. But we'll get through it. One single moment at a time.
That was great. If you're not going to go and take mushrooms right now, I don't know. After that, everyone take a pause and go get some mushrooms. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your personal stories and answering so genuinely, honestly, with all the questions. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it on to someone. I'm not sure who. Whoever's going to. Okay, good.
Thanks so much, everyone. Honestly, I could listen to you guys talk all day. You're all so wonderful. And it was great. Just where can people find you before you go off? Where can people find you on social to talk later?
Go ahead, Terry. Go ahead.
Oh, you can find me at WakeNet. You can always find a link that will send you to Wake Jamaica Limited. But just reach out to me at tsmith@wake.net. I'll always answer.
Awesome. You can hit us up on a Harvester website. We're millennials, so we don't know how to spell properly. So it's hrvstr.ca. On Instagram, you can hit us at hsvstr_.ca. Feel free, send me a message. I'm always down to connect. And you can find me on LinkedIn on Ashley Athel.
Yes, I met my first name, last name on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and here at Wake, always.
Perfect.
I'm at Squamish Susan. Squamish is my town and Susan is my name. And I can also be found on, you can follow my activities on Strava and otherwise Squamish Susan across all platforms. And please feel free to reach out, questions, comments, anything.
Thanks. Sabrina?
You could just look up on my name. I'm on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm Research Slayer, but everywhere else, you could just look my name up.
Perfect. And I just want to flag too for this conversation, we are going to be talking about plant medicine at the Women Wellness and Cannabis Conference on May 26th and 27th. And also we will be talking about psychedelics at World Psychedelics Day, which is coming up to you in June. So stay tuned for the more details on that inaugural event. Susan, I'd like to pass it off to you.
Thank you. Well, after that inspiring conversation, there wasn't too much that hasn't been said. What I want to take a brief moment to talk to everybody about is operations, because we tend to think about plant medicine as, because it's already a done deal in the other verticals and in community economic development, moving into these other markets and making operational this industry that has zero systems put in place, where the systems have to be created, and what the systems will look like in the future will actually be because of the companies that are in existence now, and how women interact with that, and how women become a player in the industry is going to be massive in operations. You know, the other thing that Terry brought up that I would like to reiterate is that systems have to be created together. And systems, you know, oftentimes when we get into companies that are public companies, it's very top down and top heavy. We hire people for their expertise, but then we expect them to work outside their expertise. And the systems that we create in psychedelics right now are systems that have to be created together. Sorry, I'm hearing somebody in there. The systems that we have to create together, and we have to be incredibly inclusive and collaborative with each other. And I think that in plant medicine, we get tired of hearing of collaboration. We think about collaboration and we're being told to collaborate all the time, but it's not inclusive collaboration. Everybody has their own timeline and ideas of what they want to get done in the space. And yet we are incredibly regulated industry. We're being a nascent industry and a regulated industry. There are systems that are not in existence yet that have to be built. Supply chains, the massive vertical of the supply chain that has to be done with mushrooms. And I think the massive differentiator in our industry right now is there's so many Section 56s, and really understanding when you look at a company, make sure they have a dealer's license. And if they're not, make sure they have a space, make sure they have a dealer's license, make sure they have a cannabis license, make sure they have a processing license. Don't give away, as a woman, be very cognizant of giving away your IP. There's a massive IP suck from the women in the industry that didn't make it to market. You know, I see Earth Kisses the Sky on this. This is a beautiful instance of women that were so passionate about the products that they brought it to market with a processing agreement. Those agreements can be very complicated. Decision-making trees and working on other people's schedules and being cognizant that your idea may not be somebody else's idea. And, you know, I tend to, as a scientist, I'm very didactic, and I tend to think about things. I can see 5 years in the future. I see all the processes to get there. And I look at other people and I'm like, why can't you understand this? And I move along at a pace that's actually faster than other people can handle. And I tend not to bring other people along. And that is one of the biggest challenges I have in working in the industry. So I went back to school for an education with an MBA in order to learn to communicate with people, in order to learn to bring other people's ideas along. And sometimes my ideas need to be challenged. They need other people to go, I absolutely disagree with you. And then to have the freedom and the space and the commitment to work through other people's ideas. Because oftentimes, and especially in male-oriented businesses, where we've been operating at a market pace of a frothy market where everything has to happen now, we don't bring other people along. We don't bring, everybody has an idea how things should happen, then they should be brought into the conversation. So I'd actually like to take more time to take people's questions, because operations can be very complicated, and because we're in an industry that is not inclusive, where we're all fighting for resources, we're all fighting for budget, to have our budget line included in our budgets. How we make those decisions is incredibly important. So I am so happy to just take people's questions. And I'm on the chat, so if anybody wants to type questions about policy, about governments. I'll also say that I spent 7 years as a city politician trying to change policy for plant medicine. I've also spent a lot of time writing bylaws for municipalities because they didn't include cannabis. So we had the federal government, the provincial government, and the poor municipalities down here were like, did legalization happen yesterday? And none of the municipalities had any bylaws in place so that growers could have land use. This constant diatribe between agriculture and this GMP status that we have to now move our agriculture into, and the incredible amount of work we have to do to get plants to market in these expensive, policy restrictive, drug controlled licensed GMP spaces. The best place to, so Katie's asking about the best place to start to learn about policy and where my business fits. So I am now Chief Operating Officer of a company in Ontario, and it's called Prudenza, and we're still a private company, but we have a drug license and we have a cannabis license, which is exciting. We also have a facility out in Caledon Hills. So that municipality was incredibly open to plant medicine and was not restrictive. So the very first place, instead of working top down from feds outwards, you have to decide if you're working in a space that needs a facility. If you need a facility, you have to start at the municipal level. And wherever you want your facility to be located, you need to be able to go into the planning department of the municipality and ask if they have bylaws in place where you can open your facility. If you don't have a facility yet, it's incredibly difficult. Mistakes and lessons learned from the rollout of cannabis legalization that can be brought into the psychedelic space. Oh my gosh, so much can be learned from the cannabis space. I think the biggest, as women, we were exited from the cannabis space fairly rapidly. Many of us we had CEO positions, we had operations positions. As soon as the market became involved in a very heavily way, and I'm not opposed to market. I think market is an essential, absolutely essential to gain the finances that we need to scale businesses these days. But what happened with cannabis was like the tech bubble in the 1980s put on acid. It was just like, it rapidly scaled, it exited all the women. Companies failed left, right, and center because they didn't get their license, or their licenses came later on, and people didn't have the runway to extend their business operations long enough to be able to see their licensing. 3 key communication tips to bring up with your team that I've learned. Communication tips is be open in communication. Don't go behind each other's backs. If you have something to say to somebody, say it to that person. Make a meeting and say it to the person and work it out between yourselves. If it needs to be escalated, it needs to be escalated. But one of the things I've learned across all of these industries is you need to be able to challenge each other's ideas. That ideation doesn't happen overnight, and people come with different ideas. You need to be able to say, I really respectfully, I want to hear about your idea. I want to be able to learn about your idea. I want you to provide a white paper around your idea, and to be able to discover where everybody is coming from so that you can work together properly. Dudes that are confrontational. I am the master of confrontational dude happenings. I've always worked with men. I was a stagehand for 20 years. So working with men in confrontation with dudes, you really need to be, it's the same thing. It's, I don't think there's gender when it comes to sticky situations. But I think that because we're new to industry and these systems are not in place, and there's so many ideas, men tend to get elevated with their ideas before women. So making sure you have a seat at the table, making sure that your idea is heard, even if it has to work its way up somehow, and also letting go of the idea that your idea has to come out of your mouth. Sometimes I feed my ideas to men because I want it to be their idea, because my entire MO is to get my idea brought to the table to be discussed. So if it has to come out of a dude's mouth, we're still in that place sometimes, where the man at the table is going to be the one to say your idea and not give you credit for it. And that's okay sometimes, even though it's not okay, as long as it gets implemented. What you want is to see your idea implemented, and fighting at this stage in our industry will take down a company as opposed to elevating a company. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
There's my 5 minutes.
This was awesome. Just note we are going to go into breakout rooms after, so I know we have some more questions, but we are going to have to try and get a chance to have everyone and everywhere, so I'm sure we can continue this conversation both in the breakout rooms and offline as well. You know, Squamish Susan, you can always find her.
Always find me, and I'm always happy to interact with you on any of the platforms.
Thanks so much. So I'm going to welcome up our next panel, and that is going to be bringing products to market in Canada. Okay, take it away, Bridget.
Okay, hello. Just before we start, shout out to Susan Chappelle. Great tips, great insights. Thank you, Susan. Really bringing energy through this day, and the medicine conversation was just. We're all in awe of all of you. So thank you so much. What a fabulous way to move into our next discussion, which I am so excited about, which is bringing products to market. And, you know, when you think about it, the sales are going, you know, sales are up, retail is opening, and we've got experts that are going to talk to us about legacy to legal, which is EKS. Tina Fraser is going to, or Canada's brilliant legal leader, is going to take us through legal issues. Lula Fakar is going to talk to us about independent retail, and Nicole Giffen is going to talk to us about fire and flower and all of the opportunities across the country. So we're going to go through a few ideas. So each of those, as I've identified our leaders, each those are the areas that we're going to talk about for the next little while, and then we'll have some Q&As. And so I'm just going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, and then we're just going to jump into some questions. So I'll start with Tijan, Trina, Lula, and Nicole. Welcome, ladies. It's going to be a great conversation.
Welcome, everyone, and again, happy International Women's Day. It's a pleasure and a joy to be here.
Hey, Trina, welcome.
Hi, Bridget. Hi, everyone. Happy Women's Day to all of you, including the few gentlemen that I see in the crowd there, including the Barry. Hi, Barry. Miss you. I am Trina Fraser. I am a cannabis lawyer based in Ottawa, and I've been advising in the space since 2013. So I've certainly seen a lot of this topic that we're talking about, which is kind of transitioning products into the new legal framework, and in particular have seen lots of really interesting product innovation from women. And so really excited to talk about how we can bring those products to market.
Fabulous. Welcome. Lula.
Hi, everyone. And I'm Lula. I am the founder of Koi. Today is our very first day that we open our store for in-store experience. We've been looking for over a month for curbside pickup, but today we just opened, so very excited about that, and happy Women's Day to everyone, to all the women that are here as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Congratulations on opening Corey today. Nicole?
Say that again.
Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Giffen. I'm the Director of Merchandising for Fire and Flower, which also incorporates Friendly Stranger, Happy Days, and Hotbox. I'm just very excited to be here today. Thanks, everyone.
We're very excited to have you with us today, too. Tijan, how are you sounding?
Well, it's not a proper Zoom meeting without a glitch here or there, so it had to happen.
You sound great.
Okay, so I have a background in health sciences. I'm a registered massage therapist and a registered acupuncturist. Have been going at it for 20 years. Earth Kisses Sky celebrated 11 years. And over the past 5 years, we've focused on developing all natural products such as topicals with premium natural ingredients. But at EKS, we are really focused on the feminine aspect, creating rituals and targeting gender fluid audiences. Which is what sets us a little bit apart.
Great.
My partner, Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Okay, so I'm going to jump into some questions here. And since the audio is working, I'm going to start with you, Tijan and Ashley. And why don't you've been in the cannabis industry for quite some time. Why don't you tell us about the challenges when it came to bringing your product to the legal market?
Okay, well, I'll just jump on that one quickly. And one of the main things, and Ashley from the first panel had touched up on it, was the aspect of legal. And Trina here is our lawyer and has been with us for many, many years. And the challenge really was legal and regulations, and it continues really to shape the factor of the cannabis industry. And we are faced with challenges every day because it's so fast moving and so fast paced that, you know, companies are continuously launching on a regular basis. And Ashley also mentioned the financial barrier, which is a huge challenge, and having to seek capital in an industry where investors may not be as confident to invest because they're kind of just sitting on the fence. No one really knows how it's going to go. We're still very in the infant stages of the business. And basically the bottom line is, for anyone who does get involved or wants to get involved, is that they must stay on top of the constantly changing laws. And thank you so much, Trina, for being on call every time like something random and something all of a sudden shows up. It's like, Trina, help us, because it's like, I haven't seen that before, or this is a new information. And it really puts you in a position to either make or break you. So you need to be on top of the law and be willing to adapt and pivot very quickly and adapt to them. Otherwise, yeah, it's super fast paced. And I'm a very like, meditate, slow, let's take it. But this was a very big learning experience. So that would be one of the major challenges.
Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like, you know, fast-paced, barriers, financial, etc., and then having the right legal support. So, Trina, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have to be a licensed producer to bring cannabis products to market in Canada?
Well, you do have to be a licensed processor, either a standard processor or a microprocessor, to touch the plant, right? So yeah. if you aren't, and obviously we could talk for hours just about what the challenges and barriers are to getting licensed. But so if you're licensed, great. But if you're not, it's still possible to bring a product to market as a brand owner, or either, you know, as some sort of intellectual property that you own. So that could be the name of the product, like a brand, it could be a formulation, it could be a process, it could even be some sort of innovative packaging or dose metering system, anything really that would qualify as intellectual property. It's still possible that you could bring that to market within the industry through a licensing relationship with a licensed processor. But the bottom line is, you know, it has to be a licensed processor that's actually making the product. So in many cases, the clients I'm advising are looking to establish licensing relationships with processors because they're not licensed themselves.
Right. So what would a typical agreement look like between a brand owner and a licensed processor, producer, etc.?
There's really kind of two main, I guess, buckets I would put them into. The first would be what I would call a traditional licensing relationship, where a processor really just wants to use your intellectual property and incorporate it into their own products or their own suite of brands. And so it really looks like a traditional licensing deal where they're using your intellectual property, you know, they're funding everything, they're making essentially the decisions on what to make and how to make it, and then they're paying you a royalty, a percentage of their gross revenues when they ultimately sell those products. So that's one option, but honestly, that's what I've seen thus far in the cannabis industry, is that those types of relationships are the exception. They're certainly not the norm. For the most part, what we've seen is processors developing their own brands in-house and not licensing them. So the second bucket, which I say is more common, would be something that looks kind of like a traditional contract manufacturing relationship, but really morphed into a license agreement to meet the requirements of the Cannabis Act and its regulations. So this would be more of a situation where you're still licensing your intellectual property to a license holder to make the product that you want to bring to market, but essentially they're shifting more of the risk back to you. So, you know, the way that the financial terms are structured is going to look a little bit different. The way that the marketing and promotion obligations for those products is going to look a little bit different, and it's going to shift more of the burden on those things back to you, the brand owner or the formulation owner. So, you know, that would be more the norm. I mean, even those types of processors are, I would say, in short supply in this industry right now. So would love to see more processors come online who are doing that type of contract manufacturing work for brand and IP owners, so that there will be more opportunities for, you know, groups and businesses like Earth Kisses Sky to get their products to market. But you know, we're still in very, very early days, so you know, hopefully that's the direction that we're heading, and hopefully we see more success stories like this that will lead to that.
Absolutely, because you know, when you think about the processing agreements and the brand ownership and getting that and getting those brands in place. So just before I jump over back to Lula and to Nicole, I'm going to go back and ask Tejan and Ashley. So, you know, there's this huge community around you because we're talking about all of the support that you need. So, you know, it takes a village, as they say. So what kind of a village, you know, as a brand owner, does it take to get you all the way to the, you know, OCS and to Fire and Flower and to Corey soon, you know,
right.
How does that work?
Well, I guess the biggest mistake that people make is when they're building their brand and their product is that they believe that their product will sell itself. They believe their product will just get there somehow magically, and then once it's there, it will sell themselves. So, but what we at EKS, our products are, if it's not properly launched, it's not going to work out. So basically, in the past 5 years, I'll show you a little example. We went from the legacy market, which is when we first contacted Trina, and she was probably like, why is this these illegal products contacting a lawyer? I can't do anything about with you guys. But we purposely and strategically brought her on our team because we knew what our end vision was, and it was to eventually go to the legal market. So we got out of this situation. The past 2 years, we removed our cannabis out of it, and it looks similar, but we branded this one. This one's not branded. And this one has the cannabis removed out of it. So for 2 years, we built a brand strategy to add oil. So we would go to companies like Fire and Flower and say, hey, go to Fire and Flower, get your oil, mix it in this product. So strategically, we did this so that we could build brand awareness. This is what's coming out in April. We finally did it. This is, no one's seen this before or yet. This is our samples. And basically, we spent the past 5 years building our village. And most brands just think they can just come out and it's done. But each villager would have to play a different role. For example, like Trina, you know, we mentioned back then, she's our law, she's the law, you know, she helps us, you know, with everything. You don't even know, I don't understand how you do it, Trina, but she asked us like maybe a couple of weeks ago, she's like, when do you need this by? Can I do it on Monday? I said, we need it yesterday. So she's on it. She's on top of things. Marigold, Kendora, Kendora came and scouted us when we were in the legacy market. And we said, you know what? We need you as a player, because we knew eventually we needed marketing and things like that. So thank you, Bridget. You've always been in our corner and you're definitely part of our village. Mm-hmm. Our ambassadors, we launched an ambassador program. So ambassadors are very important as far as community goes. It's not just about us or EKS. We really want to make an impact and help people's lives. And what better way to do it than with a product than, you know, that people can connect with. You know, we have a project manager, LP, Peak, retail. So Fire and Flower, just connecting with people like Corey. I believe we came and did our first ever talk at one of your events. Yeah. Actually, it was one of your first talks. You invited us. Yeah. Right. So that was pretty cool. That was like 2 years ago. I came across a photo on my iPhone memory. So and staying in contact with your village. right? And helping each other and supporting one another. So it definitely is not a one-time turnaround thing. It's important that brands understand that you stay connected with your community and start building your village.
Absolutely. And so when the village goes to a brand new independent retailer, whatever, when that brand is those, Lula, what do you look for when you're choosing to list new products?
Yeah, so we look for, the first thing we ask ourselves is that when we're looking to list a new product is that what value is it really going to bring to the customers? And we've been in this industry for the past 3 years. We have developed so many different relationships with people in the industry, with the LPs and so on. So what we do is that we go to the LP, we ask them everything about that product, the history, how it was growing. Especially for us, what we want to be is that we want to be that wellness, your one-stop wellness store at the end of the day. So we've been in the clean beauty product, selling, clean beauty product on our website, and now we're selling our cannabis in our store. So we talk with the LP, then we also go to our bud tenders. We ask them, hey, like, what do you think of this product? What about the quality? Have you tried it? And get their feedback. Then we also ask our customers every time we have an interaction with a customer. We ask them, what product do you want us to bring? And why do you want us that certain product to be here? Or, we just have that simple conversation with them. And gathering all of this information, and we look at the quality of the product, how it was grown, what is the story behind it, the genetics and everything, because at the end of the day, we want to make, education is at the core value of our brand, and we want to educate customer beyond the THC. We want to educate them on terpenes and how the product was grown and all of that. Because to me, I do see every time we talk to customers about that, they go oh, wow, I want that product. I will buy it when you give them all this information. Mm-hmm. So we look at that, and then we also look at, okay, is it craft grown, whether is it organic, is it premium product? So the quality matters, and by gathering all of this information, that's when we decide to bring into Corey.
Okay, well, that's cool. I'm going to ask you one more question before I go to Nicole. So are there any mistakes or faux pas or tips that you want to tell our audience to avoid when trying to get a product listed in an independent retailer like Corey?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that the package size, some of the LP, they would come in, or brands will come in with 24, but for small independent retail like us, we need something that's smaller so that we can introduce it to the customers and see how they react to the product, then bring a larger quantity afterward. So those are one thing that brands should be aware of. And the other thing is that being very transparent about the genetics, or if you have the genetics, especially in the name of the brand, it's very easy to communicate with customer and for customers to grasp that information. And the last thing is that packaging, because this is, everyone talks about it in any cannabis event, but if new brands can come up with any glass or jars or tins packaging, that will be great and great for the environment, and it will very much align with Corey values of sustainability as well.
Okay, well, those are excellent points in terms of really getting it focused on packaging, sustainability, genetics, etc. So thanks for that. Nicole, what are some of the benefits of merchandising for multiple locations across Canada, like Fire and Flower?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have, an added advantage with our high fire technology platform. So, one of the benefits that we do have is we do have access to that data and those insights that really gives us, just a look into some of the stuff that, unfortunately, some of the independents don't always have that availability. So really, for us, the biggest benefit is gaining that insight. Gaining guest insight and understanding shopping habits is really what kind of sets us apart from the rest. And it really allows us to really deep dive and understand each market, each region, each customer, and really help us just to strategically invest our dollars into having that perfect curated assortment for every one of our guests' needs.
Wow. So it's data driven and fact based instead of opinions. And I think they would like this and I think they'd like that. Is there any kind of moment where you've got a little bit of magic dust or anything like that?
Absolutely. So I mean, like, you know, it does extend beyond data, because data will only tell us so much. So we really have really good relationships with all of our kinesas and all of our GMs and all of our DMs to really understand each individual market, because they know their markets inside and out, and they know their customers more than what data can kind of tell me. So it's really, you know, kind of bridging both of those, understanding kind of what's the requirements at the shop level, but also just validating that with our data so that we are bringing in the right products.
Oh, that's so cool. So what are the considerations that Fire and Flower makes when selecting products for your various retail brands and locations?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different considerations that we take. One of them is, you know, just the ability with our Spark Perks member program is that really gives us insight to consumer, again, shopping habits, and really just consumer data and consumer habits. You know, one of the biggest challenges just in this industry, you know, as a whole, is the limited availability on some of these highly desirable products. You know, we do see stockouts all the time. And that is just a reality of our industry. So, you know, with the data and with some of the learnings that we have from our field team, you know, we really understand why is a product successful versus focusing on the individual product that could be the flavor of the week right now. You know, what characteristics set it apart from everything else that's available, so that, you know, when there is limited availability on some of those top performers, you know, we've got the tools and we have the understanding to make the next best decision, so that when our guest walks into our store, you know, we've got the best option for them that is available at that given time.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. I'm going to ask Lula another question. What are customers looking for that aren't, you know, are there things that aren't widely available that customers are looking for?
Yeah, there are a couple products that I can think of. It has to do also more on the wellness product, especially, you know, with topicals. We don't have a wide selection right now. And if we can have like a lot more topicals that are at the standard of the clean beauty product that are, you know, outside the industry. So we're very excited to have the AKS product in our store, because those are products that are very much aligned with Corey. So those are some of the product that we're looking, especially product in the women health in general. So we do have a lot of female customers. They are asking us, you know, but things that can help them with like their period pains and so on, but don't really have that many selection for us to be able to say, you know, we have this, that, and all of the things. That is one thing. And then the other side of it is that in terms of like edibles and beverage, we do have a lot of selection, but we don't really have healthy option per se, like especially the drinks. There's so much sugars on them. We don't really have sugar-free drinks. So those are some of the products that our customer usually ask, and I hope we get them soon enough in the industry, healthier options.
Fabulous. Yeah. Just trying to spread out the offer, because people are really interested in the offer. And there's lots of people probably who are here and will be interested in this who may not be legalized yet. So this is kind of a question for both Trina and for Ashley and Tejan. What was the most important thing when transitioning, when you transition from the legacy market to the legal market? And maybe Tejan, you can answer, and then maybe there's one or two really strong tips that you would have, Trina.
Okay, so I want to touch on Lula's point on the wellness product and wellness category. As far as I know, once we hit the market in April, we'll be the first all-natural salve coming to market. We have our UV protection Myron glass jars, which sell empty at the retail stores for $25 to $50. So we're utilizing the jar situation so people can use it as a stash jar afterwards. The biggest challenge, when you're transitioning, is we at EKS stayed 100% true to ourselves. From beginning to end, from legacy to legal, you are getting the same product, except for the addition of good quality cannabis highly tested in our creams now. And one of the biggest things when we were scouting licensed producers, it got to the point where we were now interviewing them because they wanted to change our formulation to synthetic. They wanted to make it more simple, just do a water-based, whip it with the, you know, synthetic, and then just get, and their strategy was just get yourselves in the door. You know, once you're in, then you can do your products, right? And we just kept saying, no, 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 eventually. And then Trina was there for us and helping kind of like see which licensed producer is ahead of the game or not. So it's very important to stay true to yourselves, because if you have a dream and you believe in it, the community and the village will also, it translates into the product. There's no hiding it. And we couldn't come out with a brand that was not the same as what we presented in plastic and whipped and loaded with water. That's not us. So it's important when transitioning to the legal market that you stay 100% true to yourselves. And I know that there are some brands watching this panel and are thinking of ways that they can bring their product to market. Just don't be desperate. Mm-hmm. You have a dream, you have a vision. And my major big point on this one is it has not been a smooth ride, but I would not change a damn thing. And the ones, like I wouldn't. And the stuff that brought us down, I mean, just last week, we had 3 major obstacles that potentially would not even get us to market in April. We pivoted so quick and found strategy. Bridget, you don't even know what's been happening this week, okay? It's been intense. And I'm so happy that Corey's here and Fire and Flower, because you retailers are gonna be the ones to help the little people like us, like be against top players like Estee Lauder, Snoop Dogg, and all these big major companies coming out. You're gonna help us stand out and be on top of the game. So it's have a dream and execute it by eliminating any doubt. So if you have a brand and you have any doubt, eliminate it right now.
Okay, so that's beautiful. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of any of your problems that come up, and learn how to pivot quickly, like mentioned, and just focus on the end goal. We auditioned for Dragon's Den, we got on the show, we pitched, we got a deal, and then moments before season 14, they cut our episode and our deal folded. That in some sense could have crushed someone's dream, but we said, no, our end dream would have happened with or without Dragons Den. Our end dream was to make it to the legal market. Enough with that, and we just continue to believe in ourselves. So for those pivoting, I hope that you find fulfillment in your new chapter. And the point is of this whole thing that I got off on is, the point is, don't let your circumstances define you, and you will be okay.
Okay, that was beautiful. I forgot about the Dragon's Den, like super challenging and sticking to your dream. Congratulations. Yeah. So when you look at fulfillment, when you look at being true to yourself, your products, etc., Trina, what are some other areas, like some key tips that people should be thinking about?
I'll give you 2, I think, practical tips, which are, first of all, this is for a product or brand owner that is not a license holder. So again, where you're looking to make some sort of licensing deal with a processor, turn your mind to what is the intellectual property that I actually own here, and how do I protect it? So if we're talking about a brand, for example, you'd be thinking about trademark registration. If we're talking about a formulation that you're just treating as a trade secret, then make sure you're truly treating it as a trade secret. Make sure you're getting non-disclosure agreements signed before you start telling people what your formulation is in potential negotiations, things like that. So just protect your IP and identify what it is. And then secondly, although this cannabis industry in Canada has a long way to go yet, it is changing so rapidly, and we've already reached the point where the provinces are starting to be much more particular about how they curate the array of products that they're carrying. And, in Ontario in particular, we've seen a real tightening and a real culling of the number of SKUs that they're buying. So you have to also turn your mind to what is my product adding to the array of products already on the market? What's different about my product? Is it the format, the non-cannabis ingredients, is it the cannabinoid or the terpene profile? Like, the packaging, like if I'm just duplicating what's already out there, but I'm just saying mine's better, that's going to be a hard sell. So really turn your mind to what is the value proposition with your product in particular that you're going to be able to sell processors on firstly, and then secondly, obviously the provincial distributors, thirdly, the retailers, fourthly, the customers, right? Like you really have four layers of sale that you have to make to get this product to market.
Yeah, and that's really important. So protect your intellectual property and understand your USP and all the layers that go around that. Super helpful. So one more question for Nicole, because we're talking about all these pieces. What companies make the biggest impact when they're trying to get their product listed?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of two ways of answering this, because it's kind of twofold question. So the first one is, at Fire and Flower, one of the things that we really do strive for is ensuring that we've got the right product at the right price for every single guest that walks into our store. So really I'd say the first contributor is really focused on price with THC and quality as the secondary considerations. Despite all the great features of cannabis like terpenes, the reality is that a majority of our guests shop price, THC, and quality. So being priced right is very, very important. But that doesn't mean that you need to be the cheapest offer in the marketplace. That just means that for whatever price you're at, our consumers know that they are getting the best quality product at that price. The second part to that is really innovation. That is a core value for the Fire and Flower family, as well as such an important element in order for the cannabis industry to evolve. So naturally, those LPs that demonstrate innovation, they've got a new unique product or unique terpene profile, just something that kind of sets them apart from the norm is really one way just to help get your brand noticed.
Great. So being set apart from the norm, innovation, improvement, and then finding that mix of quality, THC, and price points, right? Like
exactly.
affordability and
value.
Quality. Yeah, it's like the triad, right?
Exactly.
I'm just looking to see if we have any questions. We do have a couple of questions while we're waiting for some more questions to come out. And I'll just throw it out to all of you. What advice would you give brands, looking to enter the market? Maybe I'll just start with you, Lula. What advice would you give them?
Sure, I think Ashley and Tijan did mention a pieces of that. It's like, you have to be very patient in this industry. It takes a long time, especially right now with COVID. It's very hard to go based on your strategy or plan, like every single minute. You just have to pivot and change. And you always have to have a budget allocated for this emergency that happens here and there. Like our plan was to open, my retail store was supposed to open in 2018, but we're opening during a global pandemic and to 2021. So always just have, certain of your budget allocated to any things that could happen, and be very patient and be very open-minded to just change every single day, whatever challenge or whatever new regulations or COVID measurements, whatever comes your way. Just be ready to handle all of that, and being very, very extremely patient in this industry is how you're the only way to win in this industry, honestly.
Right. Be prepared, be patient, have a B plan, I guess. Nicole, what would your advice, what would your advice be for brands entering the market?
So, having, just that unique, again, either cultivar or product or something new and innovative to the market is really one way, but we know that that's not the reality for all new brands. So really, I think the best advice that I would give is consistency with product. It's very difficult right now to find brands that do offer that level of consistency. And I do feel that that's one of the reasons why our guests like variety so much, because, you don't always get the same experience when you buy a product the second time. So, you know, I am a firm believer that if you're, you know, true to yourself and you've got that consistency time and time again, the brand will build itself. It just needs to get in front of the consumers.
Yeah, so consistent outcomes and expectations being met will lead to brand loyalty. I think that's kind of what you're saying. Trina, have you got some advice? What would you looking to enter the legal market with a big L there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one thing I do sometimes see is, you know, you have to have a realistic understanding of what the path ahead is, understand realistically the timeline attached to that, the cost attached to that. And so that's, you know, I think what Teach and Ashley were already talking to, which was build that village or that team around you. Make sure you are, you know, putting that team together with all of the skill sets that you need so that you are creating and building a business plan that is achievable. You know, don't set yourself up for failure by, you know, really failing to understand what the road is ahead. It's a really obviously heavily regulated industry and market. So there's a lot to navigate. So, you know, the more learning you can do, the more expertise that you can tap into, the better served you'll be.
Okay, thanks. That's a great answer and insightful as usual. So I'm just going to touch on this with you, Teach and Ashley. You know, what advice would you give? I mean, I gave a little bit before, and then we've got a couple of questions coming up that we'll turn to.
Sure. I've been given the lead today, so I promise Ashley does talk, but I'll take this one also. Again, grateful for Trina to keep us on our realistic goals and visions and what seriously needs to be done. I also feel like mental work is a huge factor in whether or not you're going to succeed or not. So I'll touch upon that again. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and I did get some private chats going on after I said what I had to say. A lot of brands are feeling deflated or overwhelmed. And my advice to you is to write it all down, write what you're feeling. But for realistically, you need to prioritize and focus. What is your vision and what is the priority that needs to get done in order to move to the next step? Take care of those around you, including yourself. So self-care is huge. And I really believe that wherever your focus goes, your energy flows. So if you're focusing on being and feeling deflated and why me, switch it to try me, you know, like just try me and, you know, pivot quickly and focus again. Okay, this happened. I feel deflated. Experience what you got to experience. I usually like doing like a 5-minute dance session, shake it off, and then really just sit down and prioritize and focus and then move in the direction that I need to go. Otherwise you just spiral downwards and it's hard to get out of it. So yeah.
Great advice. I love that why me, try me pivot. I'm gonna take that one with me. So this is a question for Luna and Nicole. Sorry, it's just coming up here. I just lost it. You'll see it in the chat here. Stand by. We've got a couple more minutes here. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. It went up too fast. Okay, when it comes to extracts, dabs and vapable, what variety of products are your customers demanding or looking for? What's trending based on data and customer feedback? So that's on dabbing and vapables. Nicole, do you want to start?
Yeah, you know, I'll just be completely transparent. I'm not sure if I have the right answer here for you guys. This is such a brand new category, and there's not a lot of education that's really out there. So for us, you know, it's really just educating our canistas and educating our bun tenders on the information that, or the products that are out there. So yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you.
That's okay.
Our category managers are really the you know, the ones who really live and breathe this, but it's such a new category that, you know.
No, that's totally okay. I went to you first because you were talking about data, but I bet Lula has some insights on that maybe. What's trending in dabs and vapables?
I don't have much of a data as well. It's been a month since we opened and it has been only curbside. So I haven't got any information in that sense. It just that it has to do more with the vape. No, I don't. I'm just thinking what information I can share, but usually the only thing we get for vape is that sometimes it becomes really hard for customers to vape, or when they are starting it, it just, I don't know, I guess it might be because it takes too long to heat the product and the battery matters. So we have got customers coming back saying like, oh, it's not working, but that's usually because of the battery or the quality of the vape in it. So yeah, I don't have good answers.
That's okay. I'm just going to touch on one last question before we go, which is, what's the biggest frustration for retailers when it comes to extracts that are available to them from producers? What can you tell us in extraction to help create better products for your stores? So Lula, do you have any insight on that?
I think it's, for us, it's more in terms of the extraction. The one frustration for us is that we don't really know how it was extracted, and the more information we can get into that, and the more information we can provide it to the customer, the better it is to tell them, you know, especially for us, at the end of the day, we're trying to be a wellness brand. When regulation allows it, we want to be able to say like, you know what, when it was extracted, this is the process that went into it. These are the sort of chemicals or the non-chemicals that went into it. For us to be able to speak into that, to get that information will be very key.
Yeah, that goes back to the customer knowledge that you were talking about, like understanding the genetics and the terpenes. People really want to know about the products. Is that the same over at Fire and Flower, Nicole?
Yeah, I would say the same as well. Again, this is just such a brand new category that there's not a lot of knowledge in this space. And I do know that, you know, when some of these concentrates first entered the market, they did come out at a really high price point. So now that we're starting to see kind of that price compression, and there's more, you know, more options and more knowledge out there. Yeah, I do think that those are the tools that'll make that category successful.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Oh, sorry, Lula.
To that, for us, like especially with the female customers that we've been having, as soon as you tell them about the product, what is in it, and like give them that education and tell them, hey, this is what went into it. This is like the chemical level in it. This is how it was produced. It doesn't matter even price at that point. They usually will pick, you give them 3 options, they will pick the expensive one. It's all about the quality, and it's all about communicating the right information with the customer, then they will buy it.
Okay, awesome. Fabulous. Just keeping all those facts in mind. We're going to wrap up. We're almost at time. So just before we go, I'm just going to start with Tijan, Trina, Lula, and Nicole. We have one last question. What new products are you most excited by? And if you have any last comments for the audience as we wrap up the panel today. So over to you, Tijan.
Well, obviously, we're most excited about our products.
Yes, great.
Right, and once now that we are in the door and we got to prove to the OCS that we're going to sell out, we do want to have, like what Ashley in the first panel was mentioning, like suppositories, and get into like the feminine and wellness category, and get really serious about what is lacking in the industry and provide it in an all natural way. So. Beautiful, beautiful. Trina, from a legal perspective, what are you most excited by? What new products are you most excited by?
Well, I have to tell you, as we approached legalization, and I was, frantically filing trademark applications for, tons of brands that, were intended to enter the legal framework, the range of goods that I was listing in these applications was constantly raising my eyebrows, where pasta sauce and salad dressing and the bath, when I see these these products actually coming to market, wow, we actually have infused bath bombs now, and the array just keeps growing. So, we've got kind of that core product base that we all, understood and we're familiar with already, but now we're entering into all of these kind of very unique, very specialized niche products that I think are going to fit well with the retailers who are focused on a more narrowly segmented market of consumers, whether it be women or wellness or CBD products or seniors or whatever the case may be, that there's, I think, a lot of scope for some really interesting product and innovation still.
Awesome. Awesome. Lula, what are you excited by?
Yeah, I'm excited about EKS product, obviously, but I'm also excited about any product, especially on the topical product, if we can get clean beauty products that are, you know, non-toxics, because at the end of the day, wellness it matters about what you put in you, on you, and around you. So if we can get products that are, you know, good for your body, non-chemicals or less harsh chemicals on them, like the AKS product, those are products that excite me and excite me to carry in my store as well.
Wonderful. And last one over to you, Nicole.
Yeah, one of the products that I'm excited for is there's a new 3.5 gram that's coming to the market. It's called Queen West 94. So what's exciting about this one is it is coming in at about a 21% THC, but it's got a 3.8% terpene level, which is extremely high. And the focus of this particular product is to try to re-engage that discussion about cannabis where it's not all about THC. You know, so this is really exciting that, you know, that there are some products coming to the market that are trying to kind of break that stigma. Also, I know there's a lot of, you know, high CBD products that are coming to market soon too. And that's one that I am really excited about. A lot of them have been very, you know, the milligrams are always capped. So it's really nice to see that they've expanded that, and we'll start to see some high dosage CBD products coming through soon.
Oh, those are amazing products, from pasta sauce to, you know, to beauty products, to clean beauty products, and of course, high CBD and terpenes. So really exciting. I want to thank all of you for being on this panel today. I am so proud and privileged to be celebrating International Women's Day with all of you. Thank you very much for your legal, retail, production insights. It's just been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bridget. And also, I wanted to throw out, since we were talking about extractions and not knowing what's in it, one of Marigold's clients, Neptune Wellness Solutions, they just launched their new products, Mood Ring. They have hash and CBD oil. And the nice thing about that is it is solventless extraction. So just all of the good stuff, none of the yucky chemicals. So stay tuned for that. It's available in BC and Ontario as well. Awesome.
So that's it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Remember a couple key dates: the Women Wellness and Cannabis Conference coming May 26th and 27th, and also World Psychedelics Day coming in June. So lots more coming out about those initiatives. We're so excited. And we can't wait to see you at the next Connect. Have a great day, everyone.